Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to Pencils and Lipstick. I'm excited to have Mary Adkins with me, whom I've heard a couple of things about, and I think I've even heard her speak before. But she is an author, a novelist, and the founder of the Book Incubator. So I'm excited to have her on. Thanks, Mary, for coming.
Thanks for having me, Kat. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I think during COVID, I heard you speak. It was like COVID's like this nebulous time, right?
Yeah. Right. You're like, I think I did, but I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure. I think it was about when Palm Beach, your third novel, was coming out.
Oh, cool.
It's like, I would love to have her on, and life gets busy. So I'm glad we've connected. This is exciting to you have such an incredible story to talk about. So let's let you introduce yourself a little bit to people about who Mary Adkins is, and then we'll get in deeper.
Sounds great. So I am a novelist. I've published 3 novels. My first one was called When You Read This, and my second one was Privilege, and my third one was Palm Beach. 2 of those came out during the pandemic. So not a great time to launch a book, but I did my best. And I live in Dallas I just moved. I was living in Nashville, but I literally moved a month ago. So brand new to
Your
Dallas,
house looks
Texas.
great for having just moved. Oh my gosh.
You're seeing the part that looks good. Like, if I pivot the camera. Yeah. Right. No, you're right. The whole thing looks just like this.
Perfect.
And I have a 5-year-old son. And I live with him and my husband. And and I teach writing, of course. I work with novelists to finish their novels through a program that I started a couple of years ago called the Book Incubator.
That's awesome.
So that's who I am now.
That's who you are now, but you started out as a lawyer, did you not?
I did, yeah.
So what made you, did you get to practicing law, or were you like burnt out by the time you finished all those years, or what happened?
So I think, okay, I want to back up a little bit even farther, because I wanted to be like many writers. I think I loved writing since I was a little girl. Since like 12 years old is when I remember starting to tell people that I wanted to be an author. Like I wanted to write books.
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, it was like, yeah, I'm going to be, I even remember when I applied to college, I applied to a bunch of like creative writing scholarships. Like I was just like I was like, that's what I am. I'm going to write. And so when I got to college, I signed up for a creative writing class, and I was so excited about it. It was a short fiction class, and it totally gutted me. It was it was the worst creative writing class experience I ever had. I got B- on my stories. Just to be clear, that was like a very low grade at my college because we had crazy grade inflation. So B- was like not good.
Yeah, especially with something creative, you feel like it should all be.
Yes. And I just left that class so deflated. Like to the point that was the only creative writing class I took in college. I didn't sign up for any more after that because I was like, I guess I just can't do that well. So gonna walk away from that. I think it was partly like a very natural response, and partly, fraud syndrome, imposter syndrome, and just being like, I can't keep putting myself out there. I'm embarrassed kind of, because I was used to being a good student. Like I could usually figure my way out in most classes.
Right.
Or I avoided those classes. So this became
right.
one that
and
I
like
avoided.
Our grade system is what gives you validation, right?
Yes,
what they teach us.
Exactly. And so it was like, well, if I'm not good at that, I'll just avoid that. So I majored in public policy. Long story short, applied to law school, went to law school. I'm like, I'll just go this route, because that was like where the affirmation was. I was like good at that stuff.
Yeah.
I could like get A's. It was like, I'm just going to do that. And so I went to law school. Law school was fine. I liked it because I liked being in school, and I liked my friends. But as soon as I got out of law school and started a job as a lawyer, it was like, what am I doing? Like, it was like I had landed in the real world, and it was not what I had
Not
ever thought.
okay.
I think I had just never truly known what a lawyer did. I mean, like law school was interesting and
Yeah.
like reading cases and talking about them. You know, you were in a classroom. It was like, this is
Yeah.
interesting. But I think I just never really I think I was never truly understanding of what a lawyer is. And it
Yeah.
turns out I didn't like it. It was not
I mean, a
for
lot of
me.
it's like corporate in an office trying to figure out what laws. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not a lawyer, but most of my friends are like, yeah, I'm just figuring out tax laws for this company. Like, that doesn't sound interesting. I'm sorry.
No. And it's I was in litigation, which is like the antagonistic kind of law. So it was
Oof.
like, you know, representing this side, and we would like talk about the other side as if they were jerks or something, which was weird when they were banks. Like the whole thing was just so strange. It was like, I cannot get my heart into any of this. This
Yeah.
all just feels like just a way people are making money, which is great, which if for them, but it wasn't a good fit for me. And I also think a large reason I felt this way is because that 12-year-old was still in me. Like I still
Yeah.
wanted to be a writer, and I had just managed to avoid it for like
You kept yourself
over 10
busy.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping myself busy. And I felt like she started screaming. Like once I was in a law office, I felt like my internal creative kid was like, what are you doing? You want to write. You should be
Yeah.
writing stuff. And so I tried to write. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just write in the mornings before work and at night after work. And at
So
this point, I
as
was in
like a
my,
book or just like,
or
I'm
just
just
anything creative, because I
anything.
hadn't written creative in a while. I was like, I
Okay.
just want to like come back to that. And so I did start to do some of that, but my job was so all consuming that I didn't have very much time. And so it didn't take me very long to realize, like, I don't think I can stay in this job. So I
Okay.
started applying for jobs that would, well, this makes it sound better than it was. I was actually much more reckless. I called my parents. I'm like, I'm quitting. And my dad's like, please have another job first. He's like, I don't care if you're a barista. He's like, go get a job at Starbucks. Just please have a job before you
Right.
quit this job. I was like, fine, deal. So I waited until I applied to a ton of jobs, and finally I got this tutoring job. I'm like, great, I have a job, I can quit. So I started tutoring and quit my job right away, my law job. And the tutoring job turned out to be perfect because I just tutored people for like a few hours a day. And then, and you know, it added up, but like tutoring, you kind of tutor on other people's schedules, which tends to be evenings.
Right.
So I would
Right.
like work a lot of times at night, which meant I have a ton of time during the day to write. And that was when I really got to start focusing on
Ooh.
my writing. I do want to say, sorry, I get a little carried away talking about all this. So it's been a long time
Okay.
on my story, but like that, like my internal fraud syndrome around writing fiction though, that had not changed. So
Okay.
I was like writing creatively, but I had so ingrained from that college creative writing class that I couldn't write fiction, that I was only writing nonfiction. I was like, I'll write personal
Oh,
essays and I'll
okay.
write humor about from my real life, but I'm not a fiction writer because I learned that in college. Can't do that. We'll never try that again. So I wrote a proposal for a memoir that I started submitting to literary agents because someone had told me, like, this is how you get published. You have to get a literary agent. I'm like, okay, I'll just do what
Yep.
everyone's telling me to do. So I was sending that out and they were saying no. But one agent said, he goes, no, I can't sell this, but I like your writing. What else do you have? Do you have a novel? And I did not have a novel, of course, but I had a novel idea. And I was
Oh,
like, I don't have a novel, but here's an idea that I had for a novel that I was thinking of writing, which isn't true. I wasn't thinking of writing it because I didn't trust myself, but I would like, I had this person's
yeah, you
attention
had
and I'm like,
you got to answer.
right. And so anyway, he wrote back, that sounds really great or something, like that sounds fascinating. Write that and then send it to me. That's what he said. Write the novel and send it to me. And that this person never became my literary agent, but I am like, I think ultimately he ended up ghosting me later when I did write the novel. But I'm still so grateful to him because he gave me permission. That's the only reason I ever started writing fiction, because this person said, write that and send it to me. So in my head, it was like he was waiting for it, which of course he wasn't. Like he was, I'm sure, moving on and doing other things. But I was like, oh, this person is waiting for something and said it was a good idea. So now I'm going to do it.
Do you think that gave you like a deadline too, of like, I got to figure this out?
Yeah, because I didn't want too much time to pass. So it was like, I'm gonna knock this thing out. So I became obsessed. I just like became obsessed with getting this novel down. And ultimately that was my first novel. That became my first novel. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have 3 novels out. So tell us a little about each, because are they standalones? Do you write in series or standalones?
They're standalone. They're all standalone. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're contemporary fiction and they're all different. So the first one is, it opens, the main character has already died and she has left behind a printout of a blog that she wrote in her final few months that she left it behind with her boss, who is also a good friend of hers, asking him to try to get it published. So it's the story of him trying to get this thing published that she left behind. And we also read her blog as part of it. So it's sort of like a book within a book.
Oh, that's cool.
So we get to know her after she's gone. Yeah. And we kind of see how she left some little Easter eggs behind for the people that she loved. So it's kind of that's the style of that one. The second novel is a sexual assault on a college campus, a Southern college campus. And in the wake of this assault, the victim initiates a judicial proceeding at the university. It does not go her way. So then the second half of the book is really about like, how do you find justice, or how do you recover your power when you don't have it? Like it's been taken from you. And
that's a pretty heavy topic. Like, was that hard to write?
That's the heaviest, I would say, of the 3 books. Like I would definitely say that one is. And then the third one is called Palm Beach. And that second one, by the way, is called Privilege. The third one, Palm Beach, is set in Palm Beach, Florida. And it's about a young couple that moves from New York to Florida when half of the couple, the husband, gets offered a position running the household for this billionaire in Palm Beach. So this young couple's lives get sort of enmeshed in the lives of this billionaire family, and things go south.
Yeah, I would imagine that. Like,
they
always got to go south. That's the energy.
It gotta go south. Gotta go south. Yeah.
So you were talking about how with the memoir idea, you were trying to push it out to traditional to get an agent, I guess. So did you decide to go traditional?
I did, for all 3 of my novels. Yeah. So my publisher for my 3 novels was HarperCollins, same publisher.
Oh, okay, cool.
For all 3.
Oh, that's awesome. So is that like the agent route? Like you have to find an agent and then they sell it to HarperCollins? And
it is. Yeah, it was definitely, I'm looking back, I have no regrets about going that route. I think I also like didn't even know there were other routes though. So like it worked out well for me, but like if it hadn't, I think it would have been helpful for me to know like, oh, but this isn't you didn't have to go this way. You didn't, because it took me 6 years to get a literary agent. Like I was querying literary agents for that long before signing with mine. So like it was long. It was a long road.
Did you keep writing the other books like while you were querying? So did you have like, because your last 2 came out pretty quickly, like pretty.
Yes, exactly. Like my 3 books came out 3 years in a row. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And so sometimes people are like, you write so fast. I'm like, no, I don't. I've been working on these a long time. I mean, the third one I wrote pretty quickly, but the first one I was writing and rewriting for like 7 years. The second one, several years. Because I was like working on the second one while I was querying the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how did you, so you're a lawyer, you're like licensed as this lawyer and you decided to become a novelist. because a guy told you that you should, which I think is great. But like, was it difficult to, I mean, there's a lot to learn. So like sometimes people are just really intuitive and they can write out the novel and there isn't that much to change about it. And then there are those of us like me who you write a novel and then you realize like you should actually learn some things. And
Yes,
so
exactly.
how was that journey and like from being a lawyer to like, I'm writing a whole novel, like
Right.
85,000 words, if not more, like that's a lot.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I took a bajillion writing classes. And
Okay.
so I definitely was like, I need to educate myself in this. And I always liked school anyway. So like I loved taking classes.
Like sign me up.
But I also think, I don't know, I've been thinking about this lately because I've been having ideas for my fourth novel.
Mm.
And I'm almost finding this one the hardest one to start. And like, and I've been thinking about how there was something beautiful about being kind of cavalier in my early writing days and being like, how hard can this be?
I was just talking about that to a friend of mine. We're both on our fourth, fifth novel, and I find it harder I don't know if it's the expectations people have or the expectations you have on yourself or the like, I don't know what it is.
Maybe interesting. So you relate to that.
I completely relate. Like, yes, I think I agonize more. And I was telling her, I was like, I wish I could go back to that. I'm writing a book and I don't know what tropes are and I don't know what structure is.
Yes,
and
right.
I kind of know what dialogue tags are. So that's and how to indent a paragraph. But other than that, it was like whatever came to my head. Of course, that came with problems,
yes, it did.
Editing.
it came with problems. Like, writing a really messy first draft where I didn't know anything and then having to rewrite it over and over again. But yeah, there was also something really beautiful about like the innocence of being like, oh, I just have to hit a word count. Like, I mean, I wasn't quite that naive, but it was close.
I was close to that. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out if it was easier to like delete 40,000 words of my way overwritten novel, or if it's easier now of like, no, let's try to not overwrite, Kat. Let's try to stay in the line. And then like, I don't know. I can't decide.
It's such a good question. Right. Like, yeah, it's almost that like, I wonder too, if there's part of it that now, once we've been through it a few times and we kind of know what the end kind of final polished product is, you're like looking for ways of maybe getting there faster this time.
So true.
When really we just need to like be a little bit more humble and be like, we just like the first draft will be bad. Even though we've done this several times before, like just let it be bad.
So easy to say. And you say it to all your students and then you're like, no, but mine should be better.
Yeah. Oh, that too. And maybe that's it too. You're like, that's actually, I feel like you just nailed a lot of it for me, because you're like, well, yeah, yours can be bad because like you're new to this, but my first one is supposed to be good because I'm supposed to be the expert.
True. Like, so true. It's a lot of self-imposed pressure, I think, because I'm not sure anyone really expects that. But yeah, I have to be careful too, not to look at other people and be like, gosh, you write fast. I'm just right. Because like you, I'm a mom. So like I started writing when I had a newborn, and you did as well, right?
Yes.
We're I don't know, we're either insane or very smart. I'm not sure.
Or brilliant. Yes. No, my husband would say it was brilliant. We're brilliant.
We're totally brilliant. So like what was that, just like a coincidence of time? Like you were pregnant and this guy gives you permission to start writing. But like, what was that like to realize? I mean, pregnancy wise, if you don't feel sick, like you can keep writing, right? But then this little thing comes along and expects you to like take care of it all the time. Yeah, writing with a newborn. Well, I got a book deal right when I had a baby. So then I had to write the book, was the idea. Yeah.
So then
So you sold it
and
before it
I
was,
sold it, because this was actually my second one that I
that's a
wrote with a
lot of pressure.
newborn. So I felt like I had no choice.
Yeah.
But I also, because my husband, we were recently talking about this, he was like, I really feel like that was the best thing that ever happened to you. I mean, at the time it was a
Insane.
lot of pressure and it felt really kind of stressful, but looking back, I think he's onto something, because it does feel like it would get me out of the house, which meant I had to like put on clothes,
Yes.
which meant I had to like think about something other than just
Right.
keeping my little baby alive, or how little sleep I had had, or like
Right.
it forced me to use my brain. And I don't know, I think it might have been really good for me. It felt like complete chaos. Like
Yeah.
it felt just crazy, but I don't know that it was a bad thing. It didn't,
Right.
and I never felt, I still loved writing. Like it
Mhm.
was harder because I was tired and I was like
Right.
hormonal and all
Make you
those
hate
things.
it.
But I didn't, I feel like I always felt like a little bit charged by it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that was actually kind of nice to like get away, which I
Yeah.
think would have been like, I never would have I mean, I just know my personality. Like I wouldn't have justified like, oh, I need to go take 2 hours to like read a book or get a massage. Like I just wouldn't have done that probably, because it would have felt selfish or something stupid. I
Right.
mean, it would have been a good
Because
idea.
we're women.
Exactly. Yeah. But
And
with
we
this,
always think it's selfish. Yeah.
this felt like work. Like I had to do
Right.
work so I could
Right.
justify it to
Right.
myself.
You didn't really,
What
and you
about
didn't have to
you?
like justify it to anyone else, honestly. Like it's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's nice, actually. That's very cool. But then do you think that led you to like this whole philosophy of like carving out time for your creative self that you teach your students?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's cool.
definitely.
I
Because
love
I
that.
think the cool thing that I discovered through that, I mean, the other piece of pressure for me during that period was my husband had gone back to school. So I had a full-time job so that we could get health benefits so that I could have a baby. So I had a maternity leave.
Mm,
And I was like, I don't think I can write a book and be in a full-time job and have a newborn. So I have to write this book on my maternity leave. So
okay.
like I gave myself that deadline. I was like,
Yeah.
you have 10 weeks. By the end of this 10 weeks, you will have written this draft. And so, but I couldn't write for more than a couple of hours a day tops, because I mean, and usually honestly, not even that, like hour and a half, maybe, because I was nursing, I was tired. We didn't
Mhm.
have, we didn't have, I mean, we had childcare in the sense like my husband would watch him a little bit. My mom was
Right.
in town for some of those weeks and she would
Right.
help out. But other than that,
Right.
we didn't.
Not
So
like you had 8 hours of child free.
no, exactly. So
Yeah.
but I think the thing that I learned through that was cool was that like I wrote a draft. Like I wrote a draft of my book in 10 weeks in like a little over an hour a day. And it was like,
Right.
okay, that's doable. Like that's not, I just
Yeah.
didn't know that was possible until I did it. And that was
Yeah.
really empowering. So that's, yeah. So I explain that to people now. Like you don't have to overhaul, like a book sounds like such a big thing where they're like, well, I'll probably have to like take a leave from my job. And it's like, I mean, you could do that, but you may also just have to find like a little bit of time every day,
Mm,
or like a few hours a week
right.
total, right?
Okay.
You can actually make good progress.
So do you teach your students in the Book Incubator to outline or to like, do you have a certain way that you think is the best way for them to do it? Or do you just sort of work around what their creative process is, I guess?
I teach them my creative process, which is
Okay.
not outlining, and then help them find what's best for them,
Okay, that's cool. So
because
you
that's
don't
not good.
outline.
No.
Wow. Okay.
I do have some tools that I use, like something called the big question, where you think of like, what is the big question that your story is going to explore? And like a story destination, like you're writing towards something that's going to happen. What is that thing going to be? And it doesn't have to be at the end, but like just have something in mind. And then we talk about characters having unfulfilled wants. Like
Mhm.
there are things
Yeah.
that we're working with, but
Yeah.
it's not an outline.
Okay. Because one of my questions that I always philosophize with my writer friends is like, I'm not sure it's so much the outline, because an outline can be good on one hand, but it's also the thinking, like an outline of like what's going to happen. Sure. Like, and some of your questions are probably like that, like going towards a moment, you know, that's sort of going to bring everyone together, like the realization or something like that.
Yes.
It's good to have
Yes.
that there, but like, I'm almost convinced that it's the thinking about your book more than everything else that will help you write. I don't know what you think about that.
I love that. So you mean just like kind of getting obsessed with it in your
Yeah.
head so that it's just what it's like where your brain goes.
Yes. Yes. Like,
Yeah.
because otherwise, I don't know about you, but when the years that get really chaotic, like we moved in 2020, I was re-editing a book. Of course, took longer than it should. So we're like moving, looking for a new place to live, all that stuff. It's a pandemic, 3 kids on Zoom was insane.
Oh my
So I was distracted. So I was thinking back of like, why did it take so much to edit that? And like, there would be pieces that didn't make sense. And my editor would be like, what is this? You know, like, and I would just like, I wonder if it's because I wasn't present in the book,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, I completely agree. And I inversely too, I love when, like, I just had this idea for a new novel, and it's that fun thing where you like it becomes the default that your brain goes to instead of
Yeah.
like, what color rug should I get in my living
Yes.
room? Now it's right where you're like, what should be her motivation? Why is she doing that? But why did she marry him in the first place? Like you get to just like mull over those things. And
Yes.
I love that. That's like when it's like this private puzzle that you're doing in your mind.
Yes. Yes. And I think that should count as your writing time. You know, like I think, you know, I mean, you don't want to elongate that too much to not get words on the page, but like, it's good to know that stuff, because I've worked with students who don't know that stuff. And then they finish the novel and they still haven't answered any questions because they never asked any in the beginning.
Right. No, that's a great point. And maybe that is also playing into what we talked about earlier, like your 4th or 5th book being one that's hard, because you kind of know like, okay, there's some things that will make actually writing this better and easier if I can like if I can like figure them out now. Like, what is this character's motivation? Like what's actually going on here? Let me figure that out first.
Yeah, like that's a great scene to think of at 11 p.m. at night, but what are they doing?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's real angsty there, but I don't know. So within your the Book Incubator, is there like, do people have to come already with the book, like already with a draft, or like how do people approach you and be part of this?
So pretty much everybody comes with an idea, because it's an application-based program. So people do have to apply, and it's not, they don't have to send a writing sample or anything. It's much more just kind of, you know, we just like want to make sure we're curating our community so people are like serious writers. So people will say, we basically say, what's your book idea? And like, what are you hoping to get out of a writing program, just to make sure it's a good fit. And most people will, so by the time they are admitted to the program, most people have an idea. Like it may just be a little fledgling idea, but it's like, okay, but I just had this like, you know, thing about this or whatever. And then we help them flesh it out from there. And then other people come in, actually a number of people come in with like part of a draft written, sometimes even a full draft written, which is great. So then we just start helping them with revision. I mean, we can kind of we just pick up wherever somebody is.
Okay. And is it like group classes? Like, do you teach classes, or is it like, what is the sort of structure? Would somebody expect when they're applying for it, of like how it's going to help them either take the idea forward, or maybe they're like need to finish the novel or
yeah, it's really customized. So it's a 12-month program. Everyone's in it for 1 year. So I kind of talk about it like a candy store. Like you come in and you kind of pick what you want. I mean, I do teach a live writing class every week.
Oh, wow.
I have a fellow teacher, Rufi Thorpe. She's also a novelist, but she teaches a revision class every week. So, and people are invited to come to both of those, but I encourage them to come to like the one that they're currently doing so that they're not clouding their brain with irrelevant things. Cause they get those recordings, they can watch all that later, you know?
Sure.
But then they can submit, we have a couple of editors, they can submit to editors
Wow.
for critique their work as they go. They can schedule one-on-one meetings with us or with a couple of other team members that we have to talk about specific things like troubleshoot a plot point, stuff like that. When they have a full draft, they can have the editor read their entire draft and give them notes. So
Wow.
like, it's very much like you take what you need when you need it. And
Yeah, but
then,
it's like turning a light on in a very dark world of writing because otherwise
yes,
you're very
right?
alone. Like, am I doing this
It's
right? I don't know.
exactly. And that's why I started it, because I had felt like that. Like I was like
Yeah.
hobbling it all together for years. And then because I went the traditional publishing route, when I first came up with the Book Incubator, I included resources for teaching people how to do all that, how to query a literary agent, how to find a literary agent to query, how to read between the lines of their responses, what to do when you get one, all of that stuff. And increasingly, we've added other support for alternate publishing paths because I just feel like things are really moving actually in that direction. And like, you know,
Yeah,
like I said, before I
things are
hadn't
moving,
known that
that's
even
for sure.
existed. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
so you don't have to be a traditionally seeking
No,
writer, I guess. Okay.
no,
That's
definitely
cool.
not.
Yeah, I mean, things that our art world is always changing. Who knows what's coming down the line?
Right.
Might as well learn it
Yeah.
all. Like whoever,
And
most of us
you
just want our
chose,
books out, right? So
and so how did you know you wanted to go indie when you started?
I got 50 to 60 rejections, but to be fair, you know, I just didn't know what I was doing, honestly. You know,
Yeah.
like it's one of those things, like I kept sending them out. I also lived in France. So I had to come home, buy the envelopes and the postage, you know, because you used to have to put the postage back in so that they could send you the
Oh,
letter. So it had to be the
yes. It was
international, and
snail mail.
it was snail mail. And then it sort of like eeped into email a little bit. Like some of them started, this was like 2010, I guess. They started
Yeah.
receiving some emails, and then I got a Kindle because I lived in Europe in 2011 because I wanted to read English. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. You know, although a lot of it was, you know, traditionally published people putting their ebooks on. But I think at one point I was just like, I just can't handle any more rejection.
Yes,
I
I
went
get
that way.
it.
It could have easily gone anywhere had I gotten someone that was, you know, there was no like Twitter pitching or anything like that, or maybe there was and I didn't know. So
Doubt
it's
it.
a lot of
Yeah.
who knows what you know.
Well, it's like feeling around in the dark. Yeah.
Yes,
And I was in the same
exactly.
boat. It just was like, I guess this is what you do. And then you just keep doing it until
And then if they say yes or
something
whatever.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So my 6 years ended with me being screw it.
Yeah, basically. You know, it's really funny too, because sometimes writers will ask me if they are going the traditional route, they'll ask like, how do you choose between agents, literary agents who are giving you offers? And I'll be like,
Oh,
I've
that would be
never
so
met
nice.
anyone who has faced that choice
I think
ever.
it's a nice dream though. That I mean, I went through the author accelerator program for the fiction, and I had, you know, you have to put together things for clients, and I was like, yeah, I've never seen anyone get like 2 acceptance at once. You know?
Yeah.
Better that way. So, but if you do, I mean, that's great. I guess you do a
If you do amazing. I'm sure it's happened to someone. Someone out there has had it happen.
If it's happened to you, come on my podcast, whoever's
Yeah.
listening.
Tell us what you did.
So with the Book Incubator, so you can be whatever, like seeking whatever publishing goals. What about writing goals? Like, do you only work with fiction? Do you only work with a certain genre of fiction? How does that work?
We work with all genres of fiction,
Okay.
but we have had a few memoirists come in, but And I've been happy to support them, but as best I can, but like, I'm trying to move away from that just because it really is tailored toward fiction. Like our
Yeah.
lessons are really, so I end up feeling a little bad because I'm like trying to explain to them how to apply it to memoir. And I'm like, I hope this works. Anyway, so like we have had a couple that are like coming in. But we're really focused primarily on fiction, all genres. So we recently took a survey and we have like kind of people just to kind of truly scattered across genres.
Oh, that's
I think
cool.
literary fiction is our biggest genre, which surprised me a little bit. Women's fiction is also really big. And then YA is pretty big too.
Yeah,
And by
YA
big, I mean like 15 writers. Like these are like, it's a pretty small group.
that's all right. Do
Yeah.
yours are they categorized as women's fiction or literary fiction, or like a cross between them?
Mine are categorized as contemporary fiction, and then I think they've been categorized as women's fiction too, just because I'm a woman. It's just like
Genres are
purely
so weird.
marketing. They're
I know.
so weird.
Like I envy the people who write thriller, mystery,
Right?
romance.
Yeah.
Like, where's my book? I really don't want to go literary because I want people to actually read it and not be
Right.
scared. And I don't
Exactly.
think I'm not that good with like turn of phrase, but
Yeah.
I have a contemporary. When people ask me, I was at a conference in London, they're like, what do you write? I was like, contemporary? That sounds so boring. Like, what does that even mean? It means it's
I
modern.
know.
Like,
Same. And I always say that because it feels the most accurate, but you can tell people like they kind of look at you like, what?
yeah,
You're
so
like, I'm
it's set
sorry, I
now,
know
but like,
that's not
what is it
helpful.
about? I don't know. Like, okay, give me 2 seconds and I'll tell you what it's about. So, all
Right.
right. So, but you guys are working with, I mean, I think it's really cool. I talk even on the podcast a lot about brainstorming. So it sounds like you get to even like come in and brainstorm something, because otherwise
Yeah.
you're with your computer and you're like, I think this works. I don't know. And I don't know how many times it's like 1 a.m. and I'm like, oh, that totally doesn't work. Like
Yes.
after the scene is written. So I think that's really cool that people can like interact. It's not just like go home and write it. And
Exactly. Because I feel like we end up having as writers a fair amount of interaction after we already have right? Because you can like share and then get feedback. But yeah, I feel like the interaction can be the most helpful when you're just talking, like before you even have written a word, just like let me bounce some ideas so they're not just in my own brain.
right. And other people can ask questions of like, well, why would they be married in the first place? Why would she be in jail? Why would she accept this?
Yes.
Like, huh.
Yes. This conversations make me want to do even more of that myself because I just think it's so helpful.
It is very helpful. So, and I'm like just encouraging people to find that. I don't know, wherever, but this sounds pretty cool with the Book Incubator. And like, do people mostly interact with you and those who work with you, or do you guys have like a Facebook group, or like where the writers interact together, or is it mostly just writer with the professional?
They all interact together, but we're
Cool.
on Mighty Networks. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like
Oh yeah,
it's not
yeah.
Facebook, but it's kind of like that. Like there's a
Nice.
forum
It's a
and
little more
yeah.
personal, right? Yeah, or like
Yeah, and
private.
it's separate, private.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's private.
That's nice. I'm on 2 of those, but I kind of forget about it when I'm talking to other people. So
That's
very
the
cool.
downside. It's not like somewhere people are already going, like Facebook, that I feel like that's the down. They have to remember to go there,
Right. Yeah, but still, once you remember, I do think they came out with an app, didn't they?
They do. They have an
Yeah,
app. So that's helpful.
exactly. All right, very cool. So people, we're gonna have the links in the show notes. Where do they go to look at the Book Incubator and to apply if they want to start with you?
They can just go to thebookincubator.com.
Okay.
And yeah, and they can apply there. And if they want to just kind of like see a little bit of my teaching and stuff first, I also have a YouTube channel now.
Okay. Very
So they could
cool.
just search my name there and it should pop up. It's Mary Adkins with a D, Adkins.
Very cool.
And I like do some teaching on my YouTube channel too.
Awesome. Very cool. So we will have the links in the show notes for the bookincubator.com. And then you guys can find out more about Mary at maryadkinswriter.com. And then I'll have the link in the show notes to YouTube especially for everyone listening and that doesn't have a pen right now. So, but thank you so much, Mary, for coming on and talking to us about the Book Incubator and your novels.
Thanks, Kat. It was so fun.